Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to do 2 different kinds of zombie skin. Now if you'd like to see some more different kinds, please sing out in the comments below. And if you'd like to support us, our Coffee and Patreon pages are linked below. Now, on to the video. First colour we're going to use on this guy is Citadel Balor Brown. I'm just going to give all of his flesh a nice coat of this. Now on this miniature there is plenty of little wounds and nicks and cuts and things like that. I'm going to be painting them in, but not showing how you do that, because that'll be coming in the tutorial how to paint the main one. This is just going to be to show how to paint different colours of skin. So at some point you'll see the little wounds being filled in and painted. That is just so that you can see what the skin looks like with those, a bit of a contrast to them. So with the Balor Brown on, we're now going to use a little bit of Citadel Drakenhof Nightshade, which is the nice blue shade. And we're just going to put a reasonable coat of this on. You don't want it too thick, so it creates really dark lines. You want to try and keep it reasonably thin, so it just discolours that Balor Brown and gives you the shade in the recesses. It does make it a kind of weird greenish colour, but then when you start reapplying the skin tones, it really does bring that back out again. Like so. So with that done, we're now going to start reapplying some Citadel Balor Brown. We're just going to start colouring the skin, making sure that you leave the shade in the recesses. So the idea when you're painting the skin is to keep the shade on the underside of any parts as well, so you're not going to be painting the whole miniature in the same way. If it's going to have more shade because it's underneath, you want to try and keep it that way, because you're not going to get as much light hitting those sections that are underneath the miniature. So now we're going to add some Citadel Deepkin flesh to the Balor Brown. We're just going to get a nice shade for the highlight. Now the Deepkin flesh adds like a kind of bluish tinge to it, so it does give it that kind of deathly pallor. The lighter it gets, you can keep going up until you're almost at the Deepkin flesh if you want to. But I'm going to only do a couple of little highlights on this just to bring out the colour. To bring out the highlights and the pale, rotten skin look. Now I'm going to mix a little bit more Deepkin flesh in with the previous mix. I'm going to start highlighting the skin once more. This is just going to be on the top areas of the skin and the areas that will be catching light, like the edges of the wounds and things like that. I'm mainly doing this just to bring out the details a little bit more, and then we'll use the final highlight just to do really, really fine edge highlights and things like that. So keep going with this skin tone, then we'll come on to the next one. For the final height, we're once more going to be adding a little bit more Deepkin flesh. And this time we're just going to be using this to pick out some of the smaller details around the wounds and things like that. Maybe a few little edge highlights sort of on the top of bits that are more pronounced, sort of like the wrist and the knee. Any kind of details like that just to make them stand out. And just keep that going across the whole model. So I'm quite happy with that skin tone. It's come out, looks quite sickly, a bit pasty looking. Because of all the creases and the wrinkles in the skin, it does look quite revolting. So, job well done there. So for the next skin, we're going to start using Citadel Rakarth flesh initially. This one's going to be the more kind of grey and pasty looking zombie that you might see. The likes of Walking Dead that have been around for a little bit. Just trimming off a little piece of flesh that was growing on his forehead there. We want to give this a nice coat of Citadel Rakarth flesh. That'll be the initial base colour for that kind of grey, almost Walking Dead colour zombie skin tone. So once you've got that base colour down, we're going to use some Citadel Athonian Camoshade. Add this to the skin, that gives that kind of deathly pallor. You can use different shades, of course, when you're doing Rakarth flesh, if you wanted to do some with the Drakenhof Nightshade, maybe a bit of Seraphim Sepia on there as well. You could also use a bit of Agrax Earthshade on different ones just to give them that bit of variety. Because of the variety in skin tones and the variety of zombie poses and things like that, you can get a really good selection of zombie skin tones going on. So next up, we're going to use Rakarth flesh again, and just like we did on the previous one, we're going to now recolour the miniature, making sure that we leave shade in the recesses and also leave some of the areas underneath that wouldn't be catching any light a little bit darker where the shade is. Very interesting take on the zombies, these ones, with all the gravestones and things like that speared through them. Trying to keep them in the ground has clearly failed. You can tell these would be old ones due to the trees growing through them, so these are very old shambling corpses. Next up, a little bit of Citadel Deepkin flesh is being mixed with the Rakarth flesh. That will give us the start of that pale, pasty blue tint that I like to get on undead and kind of rotting miniatures. So if you watched any of the Death Guard that I've done, or the Blight Kings, I do quite like doing some of the skin using the Deepkin flesh to lighten that up, make it look a bit disgusting. Now I'll add in a little bit more Citadel Deepkin flesh to the previous layer, and just like the final layer on the last one, this is just mainly to do highlights and pick out some of those details to make them stand out a little bit more. So you've got around the face and the eyes, you've got the little bits where the roots are going into the body too. That does tend to make a little bit of a ripple in the skin on these miniatures too. So lots of little details that you can highlight and make them stand out just to give them that really revolting and pallid look. As I say, if you'd like to see some more different skin tones, sing out in the comments below. I'll see what I can do. So this is the second finished skin tone. I'm happy with how he turned out. He's looking quite Walking Dead zombie-ish colour, but very easy and quick method to do if you want to batch paint them, get them looking great. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, linked below. Thanks very much. If you like the channel and you enjoy the content and you'd like to support us, our Ko-fi and Patreon pages are linked below. Thanks very much.